I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I never told anybody to lie, not a single time, never. These allegations are false.
American political scandals are the stories people bring up when they want proof that power can rot judgment, tempt people into cover-ups, and turn private wrongdoing into public fallout. In this video, we're taking a look at 16 of the biggest political scandals from the last half-century. Watergate.
And I want to say this to the television audience. I made my mistakes, but in all of my years of public life, I have never profited from public service. I've earned every cent. And in all of my years of public life, I have never obstructed justice. And I think, too, that I can say that in my years of public life, that I welcome this kind of examination, because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Watergate remains the measuring stick, the scandal that basically taught America what a modern political cover-up looks like. It began with a break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters in 1972. But the bigger story was how President Richard Nixon's administration tried to protect the president and his re-election effort as evidence mounted. Investigative reporting and subsequent inquiries exposed a pattern of abuse of power and obstruction, and as the cover-up unraveled, the political damage became impossible to contain. Facing the likelihood of impeachment, Nixon resigned in August 1974, the first president to do so, and the suffix "Gate" became permanent shorthand for scandal ever since. Gary Hart.
This photo that has become part of American history now. Democratic presidential frontrunner Gary Hart. What is that woman doing on your lap, right? Gary Hart, Democratic frontrunner, caught on film having what certainly appeared to be affair-like behavior. She's sitting on his knee.
Now, clearly, under present circumstances, this campaign cannot go on.
Senator Gary Hart's collapse is often remembered as a turning point in how aggressively the press pursued politicians' private behavior. In the late 80s, Hart looked like a top-tier Democratic contender for the White House, but rumors of infidelity and reporting that intensified into a media frenzy turned his campaign into a public spectacle. The situation did not end with a single dramatic headline either. Hart withdrew, then returned in an attempt to keep fighting, and then quit again as the story continued to swallow the campaign. It became a cautionary tale about how quickly momentum can evaporate when perception shifts. The Eagleton Affair.
We ask for your help. We need it. We know we can't win it alone. We know we can win it if we have your support. Thank you very much.
I have never been stopped and questioned in any sense with respect to alcohol, never asked to get out of the car and walk a line or blow up a bag or cough. You do that with your physician, I guess. But the answer to your question, sir, is an absolute, unqualified no.
The Eagleton Affair was less about corruption than about vetting, disclosure, and the brutal speed of political judgment. In 1972, George McGovern's campaign selected Senator Thomas Eagleton as the vice presidential nominee under time pressure, without the kind of deep background review that modern campaigns treat as mandatory. Within days, reports surfaced that Eagleton had been hospitalized for depression and had received electroshock treatments. The controversy exploded, and Eagleton was off the ticket after only 18 days, throwing the campaign into disarray and adding to the sense of chaos around McGovern's run. Bill Clinton, Gennifer Flowers, and Monica Lewinsky.
Yes, I was Bill Clinton's lover for 12 years.
If I'd had a choice when the relationship ended, I would have been able to tuck it inside. And in my own little private times when I wanted to visit it, I could have gone there. No one had to know.
Bill Clinton's scandals spanned 2 election cycles and ultimately reached an impeachment trial, which is why they remain etched into political memory. During the 1992 campaign, allegations from Gennifer Flowers about a long affair forced the Clintons into public denials that became part of the campaign narrative. Years later, during litigation connected to other allegations, the Monica Lewinsky story broke and quickly became a national obsession, mixing sexuality, credibility, and legal peril in a way that dominated the news. Clinton initially denied it, then acknowledged he had a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate. And questions about perjury led to impeachment proceedings in the House and a Senate trial that ended in acquittal. Iran-Contra.
Casey comes up with a plan. Let's make deals with these cocaine dealers, let's give them free reign to continue their business. Scot-free, we're not going to touch them. They can continue to bring their merchandise into the U.S., but they have to help us with the money for the Contras.
George Will has said, the silly, unpleasant sound Bush is emitting as he traipses from one conservative gathering to another is a thin, tinny arf, the sound of a lapdog. Anything you want to say to George Will?
Just that he'll never play linebacker for the Chicago Bears. Have you ever seen him?
Iran-Contra is one of the clearest examples of a scandal that blended foreign policy, secrecy, and domestic law into a single combustible mess. The Reagan White House became entangled in a plan that involved selling arms to Iran as part of an effort connected to hostage issues, then using proceeds to support the Nicaraguan Contras, despite Congress having barred U.S. aid to that rebel force. Investigations and hearings exposed clandestine decision-making and fierce internal battles, and key figures like John Poindexter and Oliver North became central names in the public drama. The scandal threatened President Reagan's second term and left a long shadow over the administration. Jack Abramoff.
I was so far in it that I couldn't figure out where right and wrong was. I believed that I was among the top moral people in the business. I was totally blinded by what was going on.
The Jack Abramoff scandal became a symbol of what access looks like when it turns into a marketplace. Abramoff was a powerhouse lobbyist whose influence was tied to a sprawling network of gifts and favors, including meals, tickets, trips, and other perks that blurred the line between normal Washington schmoozing and outright corruption. As investigators and journalists pulled threads, the story widened into a web that touched lawmakers and staffers, exposing how money and entertainment could grease the wheels of policy. The legal fallout sent Abramoff and others to prison and made him a lasting example of how lobbying can slide into scandal. Tom DeLay.
It's a miscarriage of justice, and I still maintain that I am innocent, that the criminalization of politics undermines our very system.
Tom DeLay's troubles connected to the Abramoff era, but also stood on their own as a campaign finance and power scandal involving one of the most influential House leaders of his time. DeLay faced indictments over alleged money laundering tied to political fundraising and efforts to shape state-level elections in Texas, with accusations that a political action committee helped route money in ways that skirted campaign finance laws. The pressure, combined with the broader stink of the Abramoff network, helped drive him out of Congress in 2005. A jury later convicted him, but an appeals court eventually overturned the conviction, keeping the story alive as both a legal fight and a political caution sign. The Keating Five.
My mistake was to go to the meeting, but at the meeting I said that I wanted no special favors. I wanted no anything done that would appear unethical or wrong.
The Keating Five scandal was a classic Washington optics nightmare. Powerful senators accused of leaning on regulators while having financial ties to the person under scrutiny. In the late 80s and early 90s, 5 U.S. senators were investigated for improperly interfering in a federal inquiry involving Lincoln Savings and Loan Association, owned by Charles Keating, a major donor. The institution later collapsed and required a taxpayer bailout measured in billions, which made the public outrage even sharper. Although the senators denied wrongdoing and outcomes varied, the episode hung over reputations for years and resurfaced during later presidential campaigns. Jim Traficant.
Am I different? Yeah. Have I changed my pants? No. Deep down, you know you want to wear wider bottoms, you're just not secure enough to do it.
I believe that the American people have no say in the government. Most Americans fear their government, and that even Congress doesn't control America anymore. And what once made America great was the fact that the people and the government were one. Now the people do not have a nexus with their government.
Jim Traficant's downfall was dramatic, partly because he was such a recognizable political character, known for theatrical speeches and larger-than-life presence. After serving 17 years in Congress, he was convicted in 2002 on charges including bribery, racketeering, and corruption. The House expelled him, a rare and severe punishment that underscored how serious lawmakers considered the misconduct. Traficant served prison time, and the scandal eventually became part of the long-running American story of colorful politicians who eventually meet a hard legal wall. Spiro Agnew.
An appearance of wrongdoing, whether true or false in fact, is damaging to any man. But more important, it is fatal to a man who must be ready at any moment to step into the presidency. If the American people deserve to have a vice president who commands their unimpaired confidence and implicit trust. For more than 2 months now, you have not had such a vice president.
Vice President Spiro Agnew's resignation is one of those political twists that still feels shocking, especially because it happened in the shadow of Watergate. Agnew faced accusations involving bribery and tax evasion, and for a time he publicly insisted he wouldn't resign even if indicted. Ultimately, he stepped down in October 1973 as part of a plea arrangement that kept him out of jail, instantly reshaping the line of succession at a moment when the country was already watching the White House with dread. John Edwards.
I have no idea what you're asking about. I've responded to consistently to these tabloid allegations by saying I don't respond to these lies, and you know that, Raylene, you covered me, and I stand by that.
In 2006, I made a serious error in judgment and conducted myself in a way that was disloyal to my family and to my core beliefs. I recognized my mistake, and I told my wife that I had a liaison with another woman, and I asked for her forgiveness.
John Edwards went from a rising Democratic star to a political cautionary tale in a few brutal years. During his 2008 presidential run, reports emerged of an affair with Riel Hunter, a filmmaker connected to his campaign. Edwards eventually admitted the affair and that he fathered a child, but the damage deepened when prosecutors alleged he used campaign funds to conceal the relationship. Although he was acquitted on one count and faced mistrials on others, the scandal permanently derailed his political career. Scooter Libby and Valerie Plame Wilson.
Scooter Libby deliberately lied on many occasions that he never sought to tell the truth and was found guilty of perjury and obstruction of justice, appropriately so.
This scandal combined war politics, intelligence secrecy, and the question of retaliation against dissent after former Ambassador Joe Wilson publicly challenged claims used to justify the Iraq War. Attention turned to whether the administration leaked the identity of his wife, Valerie Plame Wilson, an undercover CIA officer. The investigation led to the conviction of I. Lewis Scooter Libby, Vice President Dick Cheney's chief of staff, for lying to investigators, perjury, and obstruction. President George W. Bush later commuted Libby's prison sentence, keeping the controversy alive long after the verdict. The D.C. Madam.
You could drive down the streets of Washington and look at every building on your left and your right, and in each and every one of those buildings, we had clients.
At approximately 11:01 a.m., Tarpon Springs Fire Rescue have pronounced Deborah Jean Palfrey deceased. The Pinellas County Medical Examiner's Office will conduct an autopsy and determine the cause of death. Are there any questions?
Could you talk about the notes she left behind?
Right now, we're not prepared to give out any information that was within the notes.
Captain, there's more than one note, though, right?
Yes, there was more than one.
The D.C. Madam scandal unsettled Washington not just because of sex and hypocrisy, but because of the uncomfortable suggestion that powerful figures might never fully be exposed. Deborah Jean Palfrey ran an escort service that catered to well-connected clients in the nation's capital, and when federal authorities shut it down, the story exploded amid speculation about who might be named. Senator David Vitter was publicly linked to the case and issued repeated apologies, but rumors persisted that many other names would never see daylight. The story took an even darker turn in 2008 when Palfrey was found dead in what authorities ruled a suicide by hanging just weeks after saying publicly that she feared for her life and insisting she would not kill herself. Now it's time to hear from you. Which of these scandals do you think caused the deepest and most lasting damage to public trust? Let us know in the comments section below.